Moving one step closer to the president's border wall project, the new milestone for developers as questions remain on how to pay for it all.
Yeah, pretty drastic changes. So there's the math pipeline of doom. That's what I like to call it.
New changes to the way California colleges teach math and the promise for future students. And a tiny creature that has people talking in the mission to save one of the rarest butterflies in the world. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The Department of Homeland Security has decided which 4 companies will build concrete border wall prototypes that could become part of the president's pledged border wall. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson has details.
The border wall prototypes will be built just north of the U.S.-Mexico border in the San Diego area. 4 construction companies landed contracts that are valued between $400,000 and $500,000. Now, the firms hail from Alabama, Arizona, Texas, and Mississippi. They'll each build a 30-foot-long section of fence that can also be as tall as 30 feet.
The prototypes and resulting wall infrastructure will complement the various other tools that we employ to secure our borders. These include sensors, physical barriers, lighting, all-weather roadways, cameras, towers, and other methods that we use to detect and deter illegal crossings into the United States.
Customs and Border Protection Chief Robert Vitiello says the prototypes will be coupled with another fence, and those barriers will be separated by an enforcement zone, that space between fences intended to serve as a road for Border Patrol vehicles. Vitiello says there are models for both rural and urban areas.
We're going to do this as quickly as we can while maintaining all the requirements that we have. So we want to do it as fast as possible. We think it's in a couple of weeks to get started.
Federal officials are still deciding who will build another 4 prototypes that are made from materials other than concrete. It's not clear when those choices are going to be made. Now, the Southern Border Communities Coalition is disappointed with the announcement today that the project is moving forward. That group says the federal government should be spending money on hurricane relief instead of a border wall. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
San Diego's fire chief today defending his decision not to send his water rescue team to Houston to help Hurricane Harvey victims. KPBS investigative reporter Amitha Sharma has more.
Fire Chief Brian Fennessy says he knows the optics looked bad when he did not unilaterally give the green light for the lifeguards' water rescue team to go to Texas. The chief came under fire this week from lifeguard Sergeant Ed Harris. He accused Fennessy of blocking the team from helping stranded people in Houston because he got too caught up in a bureaucratic wait for permission to send the crew. But Fennessy says it was not his decision to make. The orders had to come from the state, but they never came. Fennessy says flouting that process to self-deploy would put the city in legal jeopardy if a team member had been injured or worse.
I'd expect to lose my job over it. I would. There would be such an outcry from the public safety community nationally that any fire chief or police chief would have done that. I would expect to be held accountable for it.
Fennessy reiterated that even though San Diego's water rescue team hasn't gone to Texas, the city is still helping Hurricane Harvey victims. It deployed its search and rescue team to Houston earlier this week.
We expect that they're going to be there anywhere from 2 to 3 to potentially 4 weeks.
If the region needs additional support, Fennessy says San Diego has another 35 members to send. Amitha Sharma, KPBS News.
This year, a new school year means an entirely new math curriculum at Cal State San Marcos and other CSU campuses. The clock is ticking to implement a new policy that does away with some math classes to help more students graduate. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks visited Cuyamaca and has more.
Yeah, I want you to go on to 7.
Okay. It's the second week of classes at Cuyamaca College, and already Leisha Anchors feels compelled to give her math teacher a teary-eyed thank you.
I have over a 3.5. I'm ready to like move on. It's just
you are exactly who I made this. I made this class for you. I'm so happy for you. All right,
excited.
Thank you.
Math was never Anchor's strong suit, and after taking time off from school to have children, she was especially nervous.
And I failed so many times that I just gave up eventually.
But Terry Nichols' math class feels different than all those she failed in the past, and that's because it is.
Yeah, pretty drastic changes. So there's the math pipeline of doom. That's what I like to call it.
Nichols uses math pipeline of doom to describe several layers of low-level classes that students who test poorly must pass before taking math that will actually count toward their degrees.
So 20, how much is that of 40?
Extensive research has found many students get stuck in these classes and never graduate, especially students of color. Patch a leak here, and you narrow the achievement gap.
Or she multiplied by 100.
What happens is students come to college with these hopeful dreams of, doing something with their life, and they place 3 levels below transfer. Well, you bleed students at that point because they think, I'm in college and I'm going to take an arithmetic class or a pre-algebra class, so you lose students at that point. Then they go into that class, and the skills are so decontextualized from anything familiar that they can apply their common sense to that they don't do well, and they fail that class.
So last year, Cuyamaca ended those classes and started placing students directly into college-level math with the remediation worked in.
Why are we doing this exercise? What's my learning goal here? Oh, yes. Yes, oh, that's awesome. We're just reminding ourselves how to read a table. It turns out in statistics, what students have the most trouble with is reading the table correctly. So we're practicing reading a table before we get into some more interesting material.
It's giving you that information in a condensed manner.
And they're sitting in a college math class, and they're doing college-level work, even when there's a little bit of remediation.
The approach opens new doors for non-traditional students far removed from high school math or who might never need college calculus in their careers.
The last time I took a math class would have been in the late 70s, early 80s.
Michael Smith is a 20-year veteran of the Navy. He passed Nichols' class last year.
I was questioning myself whether or not I could do it. And if I would have had to do every level, I wouldn't have done it at all.
Now Smith is wrapping up his real estate degree so he can help other veterans find housing. He's one of several success stories. Nichols says before, just 10% of students who came to campus needing to catch up on high school math made it through a college-level course.
Whereas now, we have 67% passing a transfer-level math class in one semester.
67%. That kind of data is why California State University campuses are making similar changes.
Every year we have more students.
But Cal State San Marcos Vice Provost Kamel Haddad says it's going to be a heavy lift. Faculty must reshape their courses and change how they place students, all before freshmen arrive in 2018.
And so the faculty need to make all these changes in fall semester for the approval process to run through the spring semester. And this is a challenging timeline for us to be able to redesign several courses, right? But we understand that the need is pressing to be better, to do better for the California student, and so we will try our best to respond to the call.
You do plan for the remediation, right?
Cuyamaca is ready to help. It's made its curriculum available to the public.
They can't learn the way we were expecting them to learn. They can learn. They can do it.
And Nichols is meeting with educators to share her tips and her enthusiasm.
I am born anew into the craft of teaching, and I am grateful. I get goosebumps when I think about it. I am grateful to get to see 67% get through a transfer level math class when before only 10% were getting through. I get to, in my career, on that note, like, F yeah. You know, like, yeah, it's all I want to talk about.
Megan Burks, KPBS News.
But let me tell you about, so anyway.
With newer drugs for people with diabetes, sometimes unanticipated side effects can occur. A new study and an FDA warning say one popular diabetes drug comes with a serious risk: amputations. iNews Source reporter Cheryl Clark has details.
The drug is Invokana.
The Food and Drug Administration okayed it in 2013 to lower glucose in people with diabetes, and it's caught on. Some 4.5 million prescriptions were filled for it last year in the U.S., and that led to sales of more than $2 billion. Despite its recent popularity, a recent study found the drug doubled the rate of lower limb amputations compared with patients who took a placebo. Now, many physicians in San Diego and nationally are prescribing another drug, especially if their patients have risk factors such as previous amputations or foot ulcers. The FDA urges patients taking Invokana to call their doctors immediately if they have pain, sores, or infections in their legs or feet. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Cheryl Clark.
iNewsSource is a nonprofit, independently funded partner of KPBS. Today, on International Drug Overdose Awareness Day, some California lawmakers are proposing a radical new strategy to curb opioid-related deaths. As Dana Beards reports, the controversial bill will create safe injection centers where addicts can shoot up under medical supervision.
Outside the state capitol today, dozens of pairs of shoes, each belonging to a person addicted to opioid drugs who is no longer with us. 144 people die each day in the U.S. from accidental drug overdose. It's the leading cause of accidental death nationwide, outranking car accidents. A group of mothers and friends, all with loved ones who have either died or are living with addiction, held a rally to say the government needs to do more.
President Trump had declared the opiate epidemic a national emergency. We need funding. We need $60 billion over the next 10 years to be able to combat the opiate epidemic.
Inside the Capitol, lawmakers discussed a controversial bill that will create a new strategy to help people suffering from opioid addiction. A pilot program offering safe rooms in 8 counties where addicts can inject their illegal street drugs in a medically supervised environment.
Let's get needles out of playgrounds, let's save some people's lives, and get people into treatment.
While it may seem counterintuitive in the war on drugs to give addicts a safe place to commit their crimes, lawmakers supporting the bill say the traditional war on drugs hasn't worked. Safe injection sites are being used in 60 different countries. In each instance, supporters of the bill say overdoses have decreased, crime has gone down, more addicts have received treatment, and no one has ever died at a supervised injection site.
And so criminalizing drug addiction doesn't work. It's a public health issue, and we need to treat it that way.
Senate Republicans say this bill will create shooting galleries where criminals will be able to freely shoot heroin and other dangerous drugs, even though it's a clear violation of federal law. But one of the mothers here at the Capitol today says this bill has the potential to be life-saving.
I agree with it, and my son might still be here today if there would have been safe injection sites.
At the state Capitol, Dana Beards reporting.
Lyft is looking to get out from under the shadow of rival ride-hailing company Uber. AP reporter Haven Daly says it could leverage Uber's recent troubles into new customers and employees.
After a rough year, Uber hopes to get back on track with a new CEO, former Expedia CEO Dara Khosrowshahi. Management upheaval, allegations of corporate espionage, and revelations of sexual harassment forced the ride-hailing giant to focus on one crisis after another.
Negative headline after negative headline after negative headline. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ledger, you see Lyft. There were no negative headlines.
Uber's main rival, Lyft, stepped up its marketing efforts to attract disillusioned drivers and more riders, expanding its U.S.-only service into 160 more cities. Lyft was also first to let riders tip drivers on its app and did more driver vetting than Uber. From the beginning, the company with its pink mustache logo tried to bill itself as the kinder, gentler ride-sharing service.
It's nice to know that values matter. It's good, I think, for businesses in general, that knowing when you invest in ethics, you invest in taking care of each other and hospitality, that at the end of the day, that's going to win out.
By the time Uber's board ousted abrasive CEO Travis Kalanick in June, Lyft had more than doubled its ridership from the first 6 months of last year. But analysts say Uber still has about 70% of the U.S. market share, with Lyft controlling most of the remaining 30%. Uber also dominates the international market.
I actually think that the trend line is probably that both companies are going to see a lot of continuing growth, because even if you're losing market share to a competitor like Lyft, and there are others out there, the overall mobility services market continues to grow dramatically.
Uber recently took dramatic steps to change its corporate culture, treating drivers and employees better, matching Lyft by letting riders tip, and hiring thousands more people to better distribute the workload. Uber declined an on-camera interview, but the co-founder of Lyft said they embrace their underdog status.
We're just getting started. Our goal is to improve people's lives with the world's best transportation, to provide a full alternative to car ownership.
Lyft says it plans to go international in the not-so-distant future. Haven Daily, Associated Press, San Francisco.
I'm Miles O'Brien on the next News Hour, making sense of how robots could eliminate but also create jobs in the future economy. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
More than 70 campuses in San Diego Unified School District will go on a minimum day schedule again tomorrow because of the continuing heat wave. The schools selected have air conditioning in less than 80% of their classrooms. The district's hot weather plan allows for some schools to go on minimum days when temperatures are expected to be 95 degrees or higher. We have a full list of affected schools at kpbs.org. San Diego got a little rain today, and it looks like more is on the way. But don't expect it to cool down too much. Erin Calandra has tonight's forecast.
We had some spotty activity across San Diego County today. Look at all these little pop-ups. So most of us stayed dry, but some of us certainly did see some rain, maybe had to pull out the umbrella. So that was a nice little surprise for some areas, expected, of course, in the deserts, also in the mountains. That's really how it looks here throughout the Southwest. We're seeing pop-up activity mainly in those mountains, monsoon thunderstorms. Tonight, the low is pretty warm, 71 degrees above average. Mainly clear, a bit foggy in the morning, a bit hazy out there this morning, right? And then burning up for some sunshine throughout the day. Along the coast, Oceanside tonight, a high of 67 degrees, Poway 67, Alpine 66, and Borrego Springs 82 degrees with just a couple of clouds passing through. So it's been really hot. We have heat advisories all across the West Coast. That's because of this high pressure system. It's keeping us, for the most part, dry. Of course, we're seeing those pop-up showers and thunderstorms, but it's also keeping us very hot, well above average in places. For example, Los Angeles, 100 degrees. That is well above average. We should be at 77 this time of year. The high in San Diego, 83. So we are well above average. Oceanside, 86. And again, those showers and thunderstorms could be expected inland. Ramona, 102. Alpine, 99. And in Mount Laguna, 87. Chula Vista, 87 degrees. So it is warm. We are under a heat advisory in places, mainly along the coast, also inland. Everyone else, excessive heat warning. So make sure you're checking on your elderly neighbors and make sure you and your kids and your pets, everyone should be staying well hydrated. Here's the next couple of days along the coast. Perfect for Labor Day weekend to head to the beach. It's going to be nice and warm, 86 degrees with plenty of sunshine. Inland, dangerously hot Friday, Saturday, really through Sunday. So nice conditions, I guess, to jump in the pool if you're planning on celebrating this weekend. In the mountains, it's hot as well. We could see thunder showers, stray showers pretty much any time this week. Temperatures finally dropping down into the 70s as we start the work week. And then in the deserts, still triple digits, mainly every day with pop-up showers and thunderstorms. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
It was lost, found, and now biologists fear the island marble could be lost again forever. It's a rare butterfly found only in the Pacific Northwest. Ken Christensen from our EarthFix team has the story of what biologists are doing to save it.
On the southern tip of San Juan Island, you might witness a deer grazing on the tall grass.
It is quite stunning, for sure.
A bald eagle.
Whoa!
Stealing lunch from a seal. Or a fox on the hunt. But unless you're with Amy Lambert, you'll probably overlook the little white butterfly that has everyone talking.
There's one. You see it? This one really likes the wind. Oh, there's two. Woo, boy. When the butterfly is resting, you know you're seeing your island marble.
The island marble is considered one of the rarest butterflies in North America. It only exists here, in the upper reaches of Washington State's Puget Sound, inside a small section of a very small national park. The island marble was thought to be extinct until it was rediscovered here in the late 90s.
This is a butterfly that came up from nowhere. It's curious, it's mysterious.
So Lambert became one of the first scientists to study it, documenting its flight patterns, where it lays eggs, what kind of food it needs to survive.
It was a pretty special time with the population and the number of adults on the landscape. It was very abundant, and they were flying and dispersing in many areas.
Including beaches like this one, where she discovered the healthiest colony of island marble butterflies.
There was a lot of peppergrass, and there were many eggs.
Then, in 2008, Lambert returned for her annual survey. And just as she was getting to know the island's rhythms, not a single butterfly returned to greet her.
Pretty unusual.
She looked for butterfly eggs, too, usually found on the buds of this native plant.
Aha, no? What's that?
But her search came up empty.
I don't see anything. I'm disappointed. The numbers completely blinked out.
She noticed that sand and gravel were blanketing the plants. It was a telltale sign that surging tides had rushed over the lagoon the previous winter, the kind of coastal flood that's expected to become more common over the next century. With so few strongholds left, any loss of habitat brings them one step closer to extinction.
You realize your numbers are so low that in your lifetime, maybe even in the next year, you may not see those butterflies again.
The island marble butterfly is on life support. Come on.
Park researchers are helping the butterflies by raising them during their most vulnerable life stages.
The park has been engaged in trying to be really supportive and help bring back the stability of the island marble butterfly population. It's a matter of the staff and the researchers collecting the eggs, bringing them back into the rearing lab, and ensuring that as the caterpillars progress in their life cycle, they have the nutrients that they need.
It's just kind of tracking like what stage they're in and what location on the plant they are, the status and anything notable about if they've fallen off or having any trouble.
There's a lot of tending to their needs.
Eventually, the caterpillars wrap themselves in a cocoon, spend 11 months in a temperature-controlled closet, and reemerge as butterflies the following spring.
We are helping release them into the habitat that we're really hopeful is the kind of habitat that they need.
There's a butterfly right there. You see? Oh, there it is. It's coming back around.
Lambert is hoping to entice the butterflies to move to higher ground.
There's one here too. Wait, what? Yeah, look.
By planting flowering grasses like these in the park's upland prairies and watching over the butterfly eggs.
I track each one of those eggs as it moves through its caterpillar stages to see what the survival rate is, and in fact, if it's working or not. It's one thing to put all these adults out on the landscape, but you have to measure, are they surviving? It's not moving much, is it? Chances of survival are pretty low. When they're this small, they usually can only feed on the flowers or the buds. So it was stranded, and it likely starved.
The timing is tricky. The plants must begin to bloom just as the butterflies are released.
In conservation, when you're the one that's, changing the temperature gauge in a captive rearing room, or you're the one that's putting seeds of these plants on the landscape, you realize how difficult it is.
And questions remain about whether this upland habitat is enough. The island marble seems to like this prairie, but so do other creatures. Park Superintendent Alexis Freedy worries the prairie is getting crowded.
So it's this never-ending cycle with the rabbits, and they continue to expand. There's no way to keep the deer out of the park. You can't fence off the whole prairie for a single species. Everybody needs a piece of this place, so you're constantly having to decide which way, to shift the balance of favor.
Conservationists will continue to wrestle with that question. deciding whether a butterfly that has existed here for centuries has a place in its future.
Unofficially, it's the world's tiniest public railroad, and it's open again in Los Angeles. The original Angels flight first opened on New Year's Eve in 1901 and ferried millions of passengers up the city's steep Bunker Hill, but it closed in 1969, only to be revived nearly 30 years later. A number of safety issues, though, kept the two-car train closed on and off over the years. It hasn't run in 4 years. LA resident Gordon Pattison says the first time he rode it was in 1946 in his mother's arms.
I'm a kid again sitting here in this seat in particular. So, and I'm looking forward to it starting running again, because I'll be down here a lot. I'll buy my ticket book and I'll be here a lot.
The funicular was featured in the film La La Land, which has revived interest in the two-car railroad. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, new parks and more water projects, the push for better infrastructure in low-income communities. And on Midday Edition, ending summer on a bright note. We'll give you a sneak peek of the things you won't want to miss this weekend. That's tomorrow at noon on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.